Pam, thank you so much. Well done. Pam, thank you so much. Well done. I want to introduce someone now. I had a chance to speak with him briefly, but Jordan actually went through the Acts training program, which is formerly called the Discipleship Program, and we are honored to have Jordan here tonight. Did you bring your family? Is everyone here? Okay, everyone's here. Please welcome Jordan to the stage.
My mic on? Yeah. If anybody had been wondering why there was a baby here, it's because he's absolutely adorable. All right, go relax a little bit. All right, thank you for your patience. Sorry, table 9, I think. As you can tell, I have an amazing wife, obviously an adorable son. But I also like to let you know that I bought my first house in September. Thank you. There are many other great things in my life right now, but obviously that's not what brought me to Union Gospel Mission Twin Cities. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, my parents split up. They got divorced, and shortly after that, my mom moved out of the state. I grew up with a single father, which to anybody in the mental health clinic knows that's an oddity. With that came consistent trouble and chaos in the household. I remember my sisters always getting in trouble. I was kind of the black sheep or the quiet one up until I was about 8 or 9. And that's when I started getting in my trouble. Throughout the end of my grade school years and into junior high, I'm pretty sure that I held the record year after year of detention or suspension. It's not a stat that I'm proud of, but it's one that I will boast about. Sorry. With that trouble came a consistent apprehension to want to become a part of a community, want to become a part of society even. I was always fighting, whether it was authority or my classmates. That transferred over into high school. But that's when my legal trouble began. That's when I started stealing, breaking into houses, taking cars, breaking into cars, and my trouble kept compounding. I never thought to find help or any form of way out of it. In my junior year of high school, my grandma had passed away. She was the major mother figure in my life, and this hit me pretty deeply. Shortly after that, I was a daily user of drugs and alcohol. But a year after that, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. Whether they were induced by the drugs and alcohol, I just know that I had an issue, but I didn't address it. Over the next 5 years, I lived in 7 different places for a lengthy period of time. Several of those were couches here and there. I remember living with my aunt and my grandpa, and my aunt telling me that I need to take care of what's going on in my life, and her driving me to AA, leaving me there, waiting for the taillights, and then going to the bar. Throughout all these consistent seizures and disregard for my family's love and care for me, I began to burn bridges. I began to separate myself from everybody in my life that cared for me. With all the consistent seizures and disregard for the love that others had for me, I had nothing. I felt worthless. I felt helpless. I was living with my uncle as I was using my drug of choice. When he found out what I was doing in his house, he gave me an ultimatum. He says, you have to leave by Christmas. Either it's on the streets or in treatment. I don't care. Luckily, I had a friend of mine that I still call a friend who gave me a phone number to Waverly Place, which allowed me an opportunity to go to inpatient treatment down in Indiana. It was a miracle that I was even able to get in. This was 2 days before Christmas. Christmas Eve, I got the confirmation that I was going down there. Christmas Day is my sober date of 2015. I've been sober since then. Thank you. While I was at the terminal at the airport, they overbooked the flight. And I was like, all right, so $200 Amazon and a free night stay, okay. It ended up going up to $800. I was kind of at the point where, what do I do? Luckily, I downloaded The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, put on my headphones, and focused in on that. That was the first day that I was sober. That was the first time that I was able to say no to a bad decision, I would say, in 15 years. During my time in treatment down in Indiana, I began exercising and going to church for the first time in recent years, in 20 years almost. This brought me closer to Christ. This brought me a better understanding of my health and ways that I can progress. So a month after I entered there, I got a phone call saying that there was a warrant out for my arrest. I was down in Indiana. There was a warrant in Minnesota. Do I even go back? That was a question that I'd honestly considered. I'd been sober for a month and a half at this point, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I should go back or stay and run away again. Through my dad's help and wisdom, he said the best thing I can do is turn myself in. That was a very difficult decision, being 3 months sober for the first time in my life, feeling strong, feeling a lot of energy, getting healthy. I entered treatment at 145 pounds. That, for my size, is deathly. But I'd finally been back to a healthy weight, healthy mindset, and it was a very difficult decision to turn myself in. But through prayer, I understood that I needed to pay up. I needed to be accountable for my actions. While I was in jail, I was offered my DOC on the second day. Luckily, we were entering lockdown, so I had a couple hours to think about it. I made the decision to say no. Throughout my time in jail, I learned a lot about myself. I began reading the Bible more consistently and understanding that through Christ, I have an opportunity to live a worthwhile life. My dad picked me up from Scott County Jail, and I asked him, I asked my uncle, I asked my aunt. Those are the three choices I had nowhere to go. I was able to do a little Google search, homeless shelters, places that can help me. And when I looked that up, there's a few options, but Union Gospel Mission was like 72 font and Word. I don't know if when you were younger, you first used Word and you're like, how high can this font go? Maybe 144? That's what it was like. It was like there, right? This is where I need to go. It was a very scary decision for myself. I think my dad was more scared than I was. I'm like, I need to do something, right? If I have nothing, what can I do? And this was an option that I had. And I felt like it was the option. My dad and I had prayed before I entered into the doors. And I was really, really content with the next couple steps in my life. At that time, I had done my intake. The guy who was doing my intake saw my driver's license and he said, I haven't seen one of these for a while. So I was glad that I still had that, kept that up to date. Throughout my times in the cots and with the meals, I spent about 4 days in the cots, and it's really weird to say to a lot of you, but I know the people that have been through it will be able to understand that I had my own cot, I had my own bed. Even in jail with like the plastic lined beds, it just didn't feel real. But even an emergency cot felt comfortable, felt content. I got my own pillow for the night, at least. Next day I might have got a different one. I don't know. A couple days later, I had a pamphlet that was given to me. I think the first or second day I was there. I communicated with the staff quite a bit, got along with them pretty well. I was reading Lord of the Rings down by a tree that was right off to the side of Central Services building. And it's no longer there, but it was a beautiful shade tree, reading tree. And I was sitting underneath there. I remember it was a Tuesday, and I got done. It was about lunchtime, and I go to put the pamphlet in, and I look at it, and it says discipleship. And I was like, all right, let's open this up and see what it's about. I made the decision to go in and talk to the help desk. I met with Dave Stanley, who was the manager of the program at that time. Still is, actually. And he walked me through what the program consists of. Consists of accountability, consists of consistency, and I have to have great time management. You had to be up at 6 o'clock every single day. These were all things that I wanted for my life. I shadowed the program for 2 days and ended up having a roommate for about 2 months. It was amazing, that moment, walking into my own room, having my own key card to get into a room. It was like a hotel. I mean, it's called the Bethel Hotel, right? So I had my own key card to get into my room. Nobody else could get in there. It was something I could call my own, even though I shared it with somebody else, like stepbrother kind of. It was my own dresser, my own pillow, my own bed. It felt good. I felt secure. I felt safe, even. But I still had difficulty in my life. I still had a struggle with my mental health, with my compulsion, impulsivity, that I just couldn't quite pin down at that point. I ended up violating probation. While I was in jail for a second time in my life, I'd worried about not having that room that I was so hopeful and thankful for, or even if I had a spot in the program. But as Pam had stated, they welcome people back. I used both of my stamps and my minute and a half of phone calls to see if I still had my room. I didn't get a response. I was kind of pissed. I'm not gonna lie. So I spent the next 3 months worrying, am I gonna have a room? Am I gonna have a room? It was room 364, by the way. So I left, and again, I had nowhere to go, so what did I do? I'd go back to the mission. And I walked in, and the other students and every staff member welcomed me like I had never left. It was a great feeling walking back in there. But in that time, after my dad picked me up from jail a second time, he handed me a letter from the IRS. This was a letter with intent to levy. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but basically it was a house, retirement account, a cat, doesn't matter. They have it. Boat, 8, yeah. It was scary. It was very scary. I was homeless, didn't have a job, didn't have income, but now I owe the IRS tens of thousands of dollars. That was back to the poor decisions that I had made in the past. And this was when I'd been reading through Romans throughout my second stint in jail. Romans 6:21 states, "But what fruit were you getting at that time from the things of which you are now ashamed? For the end of those things is death." I'd been walking in that death. I'd been struggling in that death. I finally had a way out through Union Gospel Mission, through the staff, through the mental health clinic, through the chaplains. At that point, I made a decision to turn my life around, to actually apply myself at life. I became a leader in the program. I began mentoring men, leading Bible studies, and working with the chaplains and staff to refine the program to get it more impactful for the rest of the students. I wanted this to work for me, and I wanted to work for everyone else. It was a great opportunity to work with chaplains that knew more than I could possibly know about the Bible. I was able to get many of my faith-based questions answered, Bible translations. I really struggled with that. I'm a very analytical person. I love numbers too. And when I started to think about that, I struggled. But through some of the chaplains' help, I was able to get to a very content point. Through the money struggles that I had with that letter from the IRS, the deep concern on whether or not I was going to be able to pay it back, the budgeting classes led by many staff members allowed me to look at the things that I had. I had done requests for information to multiple financial agencies through previous 401ks and bank accounts that I had that I didn't have any information of. It turned out through that help that I was able to file for an offer in compromise, basically wiping out the rest of the debt, eliminating the fines, and clearing my name of any IRS owings and interest. It was a great feeling utilizing the resources that the mission had to offer to ask for help to see the progress in my life, actual numbers shed from my debt. I began learning organization, discipline, and consistency. There was even a class on boundaries. That, coupled with the mental health clinic, I was able to better understand how to handle relationships, how to handle conflict. Through WorkNet and the Learning Center, I was able to realize that I needed to start a career. That's what I wanted. I wanted a career. I wanted something that would provide for my life and, well, now my family. I was meeting with Sue Yonker. She was the copywriter years ago, and we were going over my newsletter that's sent out around Christmas time, because that's my sober date, so it's relevant. And she had asked me the question, what I'm going to do for my life. I didn't know. I had no idea. I told her that I have skills and abilities, and I just don't know how to use them. And she said, well, you remind me of my friend Roger. I had no idea who Roger was. What does he do? So she gave me Roger's number. I contacted him. He was a instructor for the code test for Local 455. Needless to say, I'm a 5th-year apprentice at Local 455 and absolutely killing it. Thank you. If I take a look back at every aspect of my life that they had talked about, faith, income, housing, and a couple others. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. Don't remember them all. I can look at two main things that were the most impactful things of the past 8 years of my life. God, of course, because some of those pathways would not have been open. I didn't have that opportunity with Sue to talk to her for 2 hours because of just happenstance. God knew as I've been praying for it, God knew what he wanted me to do. I was made for the work that I do. I was built for it. There's also one other thing that was absolutely needed and necessary for me to be where I'm at now, and that is Union Gospel Mission, Twin Cities. Thank you.